Hello and welcome to the JVG NBA podcast. My name's Sean and joining me as always is the one and only Dante Boffinus. Boffinman, how are we?
Sean, I'm so fucking good. We've got Marco and Lukas from the JVG NBA Tribute Show lined up, along with friend of the program, Alessio, ready to come on to recap opening night and talk about the start of the season. But before we do that, we've got some big news that we would like to share.
Would you like me to start it off?
I'd love you to start it off.
So we are joining, if you haven't followed our socials, we are joining the Basketball Forever podcast network. Huge, firstly, thank you to Basketball Forever for reaching out. And
Thanks so much, Basketball Forever.
And saying, hey guys, we like what you're doing. Do you want to join our podcast network? So we will be joining their network along with a couple of other podcasts. We're going to be talking about general NBA, breaking news, major topics, everything you'll hear in this episode.
We're going to be doing what we do. Yeah. We're going to be doing what we do.
I think that's the best way to say it, Dante, and so wonderfully of you to say it, because that tees into my next point, because yes, we're joining the Basketball Forever podcast network. Super exciting times for the Deep 2 NBA podcast, but everything's going to be normal. We're still going to be bringing out our weekly podcasts, record on a Thursday. You're probably going to be listening to this on a Friday morning, but we're going to publish in Friday morning Australia time to our American listeners. I don't know when that is. Maybe figure it out.
That's on Friday. You. American listeners, that's on you. Figure it out.
But yeah, we will just be recording just like normal. So if you've liked listening to Dante and I for the past 3.5
years.
That's a long time to be doing a podcast.
Heaps of time.
And also a long time to be listening to a podcast. So if you've been here for any portion of those 3.5 years, thank you very much. And thank you. I feel like we've skipped a couple of points here, but thank you for making it happen. And thank you for listening. And thank you for giving us this opportunity to be joining the Basketball Forever podcast network.
And for any new listeners that we might have this show and in the coming shows, you can expect some hard-hitting analysis. We're two people, we're going deep, but we're doing it with a touch of mirth and a little bit of a slice of life. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We love the basketball. And you know what? We're just happy to be here. So, huge thank you again to our loyal listeners over the past 3.5 years. That's ages. That's heaps of time. Anyway, we're super stoked. You'll still be able to find us on all of your favorite podcast platforms. You'll still be able to find us at our website, which is... Can you remind me of the URL for the website?
It takes a minute, but I think it's so simple as thedeep2.com.
Thedeep2.com. That's pretty simple. I can't fucking believe it's that simple.
Well, actually, jokes aside, for our new listeners who don't know what we're talking about, we do a podcast, but we also do long-form feature articles on thedeep2.com, our website. So check it out if you want to hear us ramble on about some topics that at least we find interesting, and we hope that you find them interesting as well. And Dante's spot on. We love to talk about everything that's going on in the NBA, but also just some weird stuff that tickles our fancy. I think today is going to be as big, a sort of microcosm as that as forever, because not only are we going to talk about the opening night games that we've just watched and we've just spent all day watching, but we're also going to touch a little bit on the fact that Cam Johnson hasn't signed an extension. A little bit tongue-in-cheek for Dante, a Phoenix Suns fan who would like to see good players re-signed for his basketball team, but also because they're title contenders and you want to see good players re-signed on title contenders. So that's... I think that's good enough intro. We said 5 minutes. We're sitting at 3:34 at the moment. So, what do you want to do?
Should we record a freaking basketball podcast?
Record a freaking basketball podcast. One thing we should mention as well. Obviously, we're part of the Basketball Forever podcast network. Check out their other podcasts they have on at the moment. We are one of a number that I should have checked before we started recording.
I believe it's 5.
Nice. Probably shouldn't have said anything else right. Check out, just go into your preferred podcast platform and type in Basketball Forever or the Basketball Forever podcast network, and up will come the Deep 2 NBA podcast as well as some other podcasts to check out. And also, while you're here, follow us on our socials on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I can't speak for the others, but we have a LinkedIn, but obviously check out Basketball Forever. They are one of the premier breaking basketball news sites, and also just, if you like basketball, you're going to like Basketball Forever.
Yeah, Basketball Forever. Anyway, jump on the socials, give them a follow at Basketball Forever at BF Podcast Network. Give us a follow, and Shawnee, I reckon it's about time that we record this freaking basketball podcast.
It's now closer to 5 minutes. All right, Dante, I'll see you on the other side. Peace. And we're back on the other side, joined by more than just Dante and I. And that's a good question, Dante. Why might we be joined by multiple people?
Well, Sean, my friend and podcast adversary, Usually it's just the two of us, but today we're joined by Lukas and Marco from the JVG NBA Tribute Show, which you can find on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And friend of the program, Alessio. So, Lukas, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks. And short form, the more aerodynamic version of our podcast is the Jeff Van Gundy Tribute Show. If you're wondering what all those letters mean. The NBA also does stand for National Basketball Association.
Yeah, there's a long form as well.
I'm not done, but that's mostly the reason that we're here tonight. Marco?
Everything that he said and more, I guess.
And now Les?
Yeah, I've got nothing to add. I'm just a friend of the pod that's been here from the beginning.
We stand on the shoulders of giants. You being one of them.
Yeah.
That's actually what they said at the Bill Russell speech. Bro.
I only have one shoulder, so not a
On the shoulder.
And that shoulder's doing so much work.
Lopsided. Lopsided.
Yeah, why do you think
the
I only have
atlas
one
to our
shoulder?
the other thing. Come on, you like the mythology references.
The Atlas to our Prometheus.
Yeah.
Damn, bro. Damn.
So usually it is just Dante and I on the podcast, but we have these friends who write for us at thedeep2.com. I can't believe it's that simple. We're also friends before we were writing for thedeep2.com.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't.
And Lukas and Marco have their own podcast. So every now and again, whenever there's a major event in the NBA world, like opening night, like all the All-Star break or the trade deadline or the start of the off-season, we'll usually get together for a little bit of a chin wag and a bit of banter.
Gas
Not
bag,
to
you could
sound
say.
too ochre. And obviously it was opening night in the NBA today.
That actually
last
stands for
night.
National Basketball Association, I've heard.
Hey, no inside jokes.
Nah, that was an outside joke.
Yeah, there is a strict no inside jokes in this episode for obvious reasons. But we just finished watching. We rewatched the second game of the day of the season between the Lakers and the Warriors. And Lukas, we'll start off with you. What did you see in today's game that really stood out?
So, a staple of recording a podcast is to never get chicken shop chicken before you record. And we did that and, not feeling too crash hot. And neither were the Lakers, were they, fellas? But no, I feel like it wasn't the best start to a season overall. I feel like we got one really good half from the Celtics 76ers game until the Celtics decided to win and the 76ers just let it happen.
Well, decided to stand around for 20 seconds and then give it to JoJo with 5 seconds to
Yeah,
go.
they were like, oh, the best defensive team in the league. Let's see what happens. No, fuck that up. But then in the second game, it definitely felt like the Warriors didn't take the Lakers seriously whatsoever. And then the Lakers started running in transition with like 4 minutes to go, and they cut, what was it, Sean, a 22-point lead?
I think it was 25 at one point.
25 down to about 9, and then the Warriors took it back again. But yeah, I feel like, you're always more excited. I feel like opening night in the NBA is always better at the start of the games than it is at the end of the games.
Yeah, there's just so much going on at the actual start of the game, and it is ring night, and it is good to defend your rings. And obviously, no one's lost an opening night game as a defending champion since Dallas Mavs in 2011. Correct me if I'm wrong. So it is a little bit because they get given weaker opponents, and the Golden State Warriors were given one of the weakest opponents in the West to start off the season. So not bad for my Golden State Warriors to come out, put the Draymond and Jordan Poole stuff in the background. Obviously, Draymond had that beautiful pass, or vice versa. Jordan Poole had that beautiful bounce pass from the top of the key. So there's no more beef, and
Yeah, that's the
all
last
in
we're
the
gonna
past.
hear.
Yeah, that's the last we're going to hear about it. We're actually favourites to win the title again after everything was quashed. So, yeah, Dante, what did you notice in today's game?
Well, my first instinct, my first reaction was right at the start of the game. And you know how there's like masks Dwayne Wade or LeBron when he's pulling that frown face and it's it was over before it started. And when the Lakers rolled out with a 1 through 3 lineup of Russell Westbrook, Patrick Beverley and Lonnie Walker IV, it was over before it started. Because, Lukey, you're so right. The Warriors just didn't take them seriously at all. It literally looked pre-season for the Warriors out there. And, we did this last year on opening night with the Lakers after they had traded for Westbrook and before it was self-evident that it was going to be really bad. But they stunk it up in their first game of the season, and then we were like, damn, the Lakers might actually be really bad. And now they're worse.
And
they
we
just
know they're bad.
put in a performance where they were down by 25 in the third quarter. This is going to be another long season in LA.
It says a lot about where the Warriors are as a franchise that they came out with so little vigor, and then we were getting, Jermichael Green minutes straight off.
Straight away, they were like 4 minutes in, get him in.
What's going on here?
Jermichael Green and Big Jim minutes
at
the same time.
At the same time, which, I mean, that's terrible whoever you're playing. But it just speaks that the Warriors don't need to make a stamp on the first game of the season against a team like the Lakers, who they know they can beat. I think almost any other team, first night you roll out all the guns, you roll out your best rotation, and just the fact that they went so deep to their bench so quickly was it points to, one, the disrespect they have for the Lakers, and two, that they've been here before and they're no stranger to the big occasion, opposed to like the Boston Celtics, who really came out like, we were in the finals last year. Like this is an impact statement for us.
I feel like the Warriors weren't playing that way where it's like, let's not run a play but it looks really good. It was like, let's not run a play because we don't want to be tired for training.
What do you reckon, Alessio? You were one of the few people who watched it live.
Yeah, I'm going on the Lakers side of it. I was a little shocked at how little like LeBron and Anthony Davis gave a shit.
Yeah.
I think for the first 4 minutes they kept feeding Davis, and it was like, are they pushing for, not an MVP season, but they're pushing to like, let's ride with our young star. LeBron's old. Let's like really like use him as a workhorse type thing. And then after the first 4 minutes, everything turned to shit. And LeBron ends up with his 30, like Marco said before, and Davis ends up with 20 whatever.
A bad 20.
Yeah, but everyone sucked.
Yeah.
Everyone sucked. And like we sort of knew it. But I think if you're LeBron and you're Davis and you've kept this Westbrook thing and you brought in Beverly and you've brought in all these like ancillary pieces who aren't good, but you're selling them as if they are. I don't know, try to win a fucking basketball game.
Yeah, and this might be the high watermark for Russell Westbrook as well, because he had a few self-created transition opportunities where he would get the ball, he would run, and it's like, okay, the only reason they scored these 2 points is because Russell Westbrook got the rebound or he got the outlet and he like went off and did his good thing. Like that's where he gets his value. But for all the times that, what did he have, like 18 points or something? Or was that just the meme that Reggie Miller was saying? But he had like a fine game, but for every time he wasn't running in transition or he wasn't like the only one of the quote big three on the court, it was like, okay, well, you're clearing the court out for Anthony Davis, which is like, we'll talk about it in a second, just a stark, disgusting contrast to what was happening with Joel Embiid clear-outs, 4 people on the weak side. But yeah, like you clear the ball out, and then whoever was on Russell Westbrook, most of the time it was either Andrew Wiggins or Draymond Green, and they were like, cool, well, I'm just going to slowly walk over to whoever's posting up. It's probably going to be Anthony Davis, and we're just going to get a really nice defensive possession out of this. And it's like, well, that's the problem. And twice the Warriors were sagging back on Westbrook while he had a wide open shot in the corner, and the crowd knew what was going on, and you feel a bit bad for Westbrook.
And he airballed one of them. And Marco said this is going to be a great shot.
The funniest thing about leaving Westbrook open is that even if you do go and contest it, when he dribbles around you, you know he's going to miss the layup.
Yeah.
Him and Draymond love missing layups. So it's like, I'll contest the three if that, because you're probably going to he will shoot higher from the corner than he would attacking the closeout and then shooting at the rim. He'll shoot a better percentage.
It's like, buddy, you did the hard part. Finish the layup.
Yeah, I know, seriously.
The other thing about Westbrook in this game is like, although, he did have a few moments where he got out in transition and got running and made some baskets for himself and also for others, he was getting taken off the dribble by Klay Thompson in this game. Like if the switches worked out on the perimeter, that it was Klay catching the ball. Like Klay wasn't just settling for a three, and we know that this post-injury Klay just wants to jack up shots, and Klay wasn't like taking a one dribble pull up, getting to the elbow and rising up over Westbrook. He was just taking him off the dribble and getting to the rim, and it's like, well, you say it's going to be the high watermark, and if this is a better than average performance that we get from Westbrook this season, the defense was still diabolically bad. So, he offensively, like, you can kind of see a little bit of the value that he can still bring a team, which is what we keep getting told, that he can still bring value to a team. But defensively, like, it's as bad as it's ever been. And in a situation where, the nexus point of, is he trying, does he care, and has he lost a little bit of that explosiveness, like that kind of meets and manifests in a way that's Klay Thompson at 32 years old with, like one ACL and no Achilles taking you off the dribble.
Yeah, Klay's not moving well in any part of the floor. He's genuinely moving.
I mean, he was on the minutes restriction as well.
Yeah. Paulie's probably like strong, but he's not moving. Like,
he's not
fluid.
And he was never the most fleet of foot guy to begin with, and he's now, definitely lost a step from a few years ago. So for Russ to not even be able to stay in front of him is like a bad omen.
And then there's just nothing to make up for it on the Lakers. There's no one in the hole to clean up shots at the rim. Like we were saying before, Lonnie Walker the fourth is their starting three, and their wing rotation pretty much stops there. Every single other one of their guards is like 6'1" and not a good defender. I don't know, depending how you feel about Patrick Beverley, and even LeBron. LeBron on both sides of the ball in this game. Like Paul hit that really nice step back on him. That was it felt like something that'll be in his mixtape on YouTube at the end of the season.
Or TikTok tonight.
Yeah, or TikTok. It will definitely be on TikTok tonight. Warriors 2022-23 top moments. Poll at the next Chase Center game. But God, now I've lost my train of thought with that gag. And then they were just throwing whatever defender on LeBron as well. Like it was Wiggins, it was Kuminga, it was
Looney.
Yeah, it was Looney.
He didn't get around Looney once.
It was JaMychal Green. So there wasn't sort of this like care that you often have to take with LeBron. That's like, all right, you're just gonna have to put your best wing size defender on him all game long. So if that's sort of the first impression of the Lakers, it's not looking good.
Well, let's say, I mean, all in all, it was one of the top 3 or 5 title contenders against a play-in team.
Yeah.
Like that's what we watched, right? Not much to take away there from the Warriors, but what do you reckon, Lucas? What do you reckon about this? Like, do you see a hope for the Lakers to like be a solid top 6 playoff team? Like, what can you learn from the Lakers' point of view?
No, before you finish, no. But I actually feel worse about them than I did going into the season.
Absolutely.
Going into the season,
Absolutely.
I was like, what's their line? 44.5? And I was like, oh, they'll go under.
That's so big.
But I was like, they'll go under, but
Vegas,
like,
baby.
there's,
because people will bet on it.
Yeah,
They
but
know,
it's
set
like,
the number.
there's always that thing.
Exactly.
There's always that thing of like, a LeBron team could get to 50 wins, but now it's like, no way they're going to hit 44 and a half wins. No, I feel a lot worse after having watched that game than I did beforehand. There's just like, they're just so far from looking like champions than the Warriors are like the perfect team to compare them against. Like that for the entire 48 minutes they're going to at least give themselves a chance on every possession. Whereas the Lakers just like they get beaten because the other team's better than them, but then they beat themselves because there's tiers between who they are and winning a championship, and you don't like paper them up in the space of a season.
Yeah, and I'm just sorry, I got to butt in here. The Davis to the 5 thing works when the ancillary pieces are Caruso and Caldwell Pope and I can't remember the point guard. LeBron would have been the 4 and someone else who would have been the
Danny Green, Caruso.
Danny Green.
But how do you get them on the
right?
Lakers?
Well, exactly. And so it's like that works when Davis is surrounded. Davis has to just defend the sole big person, and he just has to man up and do it or whatever. And everyone else can like float around him. But when the ancillary pieces are 6'3" Westbrook who can't defend, 6'2" Patrick Beverley who is aggressive at least, and Lonnie Walker who only scored 5 points despite being sold as like, well, he's now the number 3, basically.
He's the next Malik Monk.
And so
Who also averaged 12 points last season.
Davis to the 5 and LeBron to the 4 when LeBron isn't exactly making any defensive stands. The Davis to the 5 means nothing.
The non-LeBron big options on this team that we watched them roll out was Matt Ryan at the 4. That's not the Colts quarterback, by the way. That's Matt Ryan from the Lakers. Yeah. Jeez.
Former DoorDasher.
Matt Ryan has to watch out for Mitch Langerak for the Socceroos number 1. Yeah.
We got that on.
We got that on fucking tape.
You will be champ. How do you say that again?
What?
What's the you won't sing that?
You're not singing anymore.
We do love the football.
There's another one. Yeah.
We do love the football.
We've overplayed the bit.
And then the other big option as an accompaniment to Davis or in place of him is Wenyen Gabriel, who came in and he tried.
Number 1 Wenyen Gabriel fan to your right, other right.
Wenyen Gabriel came in and got blocked, and then 2 offensive fouls in his first 3 possessions.
Wenyan Gabriel didn't make the Kings roster.
Wenyan Gabriel
He didn't make the Kings.
he was just getting passed around the league, getting cut for so
Yeah,
long.
we had it for a bit. Pelicans, sorry, I don't need to re-establish who I am.
This is Marco Holden in a wig and glasses.
Yeah, he's made a career off having gone to Kentucky, and like, good on you.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make you a backup for Anthony Davis. Yeah, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not enough.
But yeah, that's the thing. Like, was actually floating around the league, as in, not able to get minutes in Sacramento or the Pelicans. He's actually in the first 3 or 4 off the bench for the Lakers at the moment. I know. Yeah, they have what?
Thomas Bryant.
They have Thomas Bryant,
what happened to
Troy
Damian
Brown Jr., Dennis Schroeder all injured.
I think he could very well be fully healthy. He's just still Damian Jones.
Yeah, because he started all their preseason. They were him with the 5 and whatever.
Thomas Bryant's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Are they missing anyone else?
Schroeder's out for a week or 2,
yeah.
and Troy Brown Jr. Am I right in that?
I mean, again, he might be healthy.
Yeah, but how many of those players?
He was in street coast today for
How
sure.
many of those players are good at basketball?
Yeah, I know.
A couple of them, not very good though.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Look, man, I'm a Wizards fan. Need to reestablish that. I definitely tried to be a Troy Brown Jr. fan, but there were like 8 to 10 games a season where he was legit good at basketball. But we aren't near the playoffs.
That's 10% of the season.
Yeah,
That's so little.
And Thomas Bryant?
Thomas Bryant really good in a 33-win team.
That
Which
season
is what
though,
these Lakers teams
Yeah.
that season where that we were talking about whilst watching the game off air, Lukey, where he shot 42.9% from 3, which you know what that is.
Oh, I know that is.
You know what that is.
3 of 7, and
3.
most basketball fans know what that is.
3 of 7. We played my player growing up. We know. We know. You know how many games he played in that season? He played like 13 games that season.
Yeah,
and then he did his ACL.
Yeah.
So he's got 13 games of producing like a highly talented offensive center. And in all of his healthy and unhealthy seasons, he's been a very, very bad defensive center. So he's not actually really an option at the 5, because if you're going to go small at the 5, you need to have your big be actually able to like defend in space and defend down low, and he hasn't been proven to be able to do either of those things.
Yeah, Anthony Davis wants a Brook Lopez so he can act like Giannis. He doesn't have the skills or the wherewithal to act like Giannis or Joel Embiid at this stage in his career. I think that's just done and dusted. And yeah, Thomas Bryant is not a Brook Lopez.
No.
I just his mindset was so good in the first 4 minutes. It was like deflecting balls. He was
Davis.
I
disagree, because he scored a layup. He took someone off the dribble for a layup on his first basket, and then literally the next time down the floor, he was matched up in the corner on the baseline just inside the arc with Looney on him, and he caught it, and he did a couple of jab steps, and then took a step back, one dribble, and I was like, nah, he's got no mentality.
So you're saying no mindset?
He doesn't.
No mindset. No mindset. It was like, it's like nothing's changed. Like he came into LA, and it's like, wow, they're gonna like, LeBron's gonna like groom him for success and like hand over the reins and like.
Dante, you've established is a Chris Paul.
Hey, we said no inside jokes. We said no inside jokes.
You made it so much worse.
So the joke is that Chris Paul also knows.
LeBron was gonna like hand over the torch, and even 2 seasons ago they were saying like, I think the commentators in the basketball commentariat were saying, I think
Had
that
to get one off.
Wait, +5 in the basketball commentary.
They were like, the Lakers are going to be better if LeBron James takes a backseat and plays facilitator and Davis grows into the spotlight. And he's just regressed. He has just like become a shell of the player that we saw in that championship season in LA and that we saw in New Orleans.
And in Kentucky before that.
Did he go to Kentucky?
Yeah.
You know who else went to Kentucky?
John Wall.
Wenyan Gabriel.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to stop talking about the Lakers. Do you guys want to move on to Boston Philly or any final comments?
Well, I thought, and this will be a great segue. I usually say that after you make a good segue. However, watching AD on those like clear out post ups and then watching Embiid on those clear out post ups earlier today. When AD gets it, it's like, okay, cool. What are the Warriors going to do with this transition basket? When Embiid gets it. Even when the Celtics defend really well, which they've done for fucking 2 years now, so when you don't have an offensive game plan going into a game, you've made your bed and you're going to lose that game. But even when, the Celtics are set up and Embiid's on that one side, and it's like,
he's still amazing.
It's still like, what's going to happen here?
Yeah. He could shake or he could do something, and everyone always jumps on him. But
he had one really good. It was the end of the game, so the Celtics were sort of pulling back. But he caught the ball 12 to 15 feet away, took one dribble to the right, had his whole body moving to the right. Al Horford jumped with him, and then he just spun left and dunked it, and it was like, no 7-footers are doing it.
Yeah.
They're just not. Like Giannis, sure.
To be fair, I feel like that was the one possession of the game Boston didn't double him with it.
Exactly.
Getting the ball.
For sure.
But even then, he was passing out of those doubles. Given that they lost the game and like it looked like they lost the game from about 5 minutes into the third quarter, he was dealing with the doubles they were throwing at him really well.
Good point.
Yeah, nice. Well, let's officially move on to Boston.
Sorry,
Philly.
go ahead.
Good
no Robert Williams. You would think that Philadelphia could, like Lucas said, like prepare for it. Because what are they going to do? Noel Vonleh does not sit on the... As soon as you find out Noel Vonleh's in the starting lineup, you figure out a way to attack that matchup.
Yeah.
Was he in the starting lineup?
No. He first guy off the bench.
Yeah, he was,
but,
sorry.
He was like within 4 minutes of the game.
He played so many
Well,
minutes.
Al Horford got two very
Phantom fouls.
And so it's like, all right,
That's
well,
all.
you know that he's not sitting on that corner player and drifting across to swat shots or whatever.
Yeah, he's not roaming.
You know what the defensive setup is like. I can't imagine Boston's gone out of their way to completely change what Udoka brought in last year. They're going to be running a pretty similar like defensive scheme. And yet Embiid's running into double teams and like throwing 6 turnovers. Yeah, he handled most of them really well, but he was also under so much pressure. And half of the possessions, all the Philly, every Philly player that wasn't Harden or Embiid would just 2 plonked in the corners, 1 plonked on the 45, and everyone just stood there completely still. Because once PJ Tucker's in the corner, he's in the corner. Unless a rebound goes up, he's not moving.
Yeah.
Tyrese Maxey wasn't doing much today, and I can't remember who the 5th player was, but they were just always caught out.
Have we said Tobias Harris' name?
Tobias Harris.
We're talking about PJ
so
Tucker before we talk about Tobias Harris,
Tobias Harris.
which is a sign. Someone said like this is like on a podcast like 2 or 3 years ago, like when Tobias Harris got to Philly. But someone said, and it's always stuck with me, that Tobias Harris plays like the 3rd best player on the court, no matter if he's playing in the All-Star game or if he's playing with the reserves. And it's so true, because he's like the least assertive, most passive player. And in a moment like this where it's like someone like if Tob Harris or Maxey really like stood up and were saying like, all right, I'm going to attack the cup, knowing that their prime rim protectors are either in foul trouble or on the bench with an injury. Like, just go, do it. Go and get yourself 25 points against soft interior D. But Tob Harris just, Luke, he doesn't have the mindset. No mindset to do that.
And Harden was always going to be matched up on a tough defender.
Yeah.
But the whole offseason was like, Harden's
good now.
Harden's fit. Harden's healthy. We're going to see this old Harden, blah, blah, blah. Get to the rim. Draw a foul. He drew 2 semi-bullshit fouls. All right, whether you call it or not, that's fine. So he got his 6 free throws from that. But he wasn't doing his, like, swinging the arms in the middle of the key, drawing...
But he found out last season that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And like, moved away from that, which you might say for the offense is good, because then there's less, like, flailing in the key, like, throwing it up and it hits the bottom of the rim. But he's another one who it's like... get in there and finish a layup through contact.
Yeah. He's done it for so many years.
Yeah, well, he's done it for so many years, but last season, in Brooklyn and in Philly, wasn't able to really make it happen.
I think we need to start like actually pointing fingers as opposed to like actually you can come in, big brother. I think you need to actually start pointing fingers as opposed to just like talking about orders, because like it is a Doc Rivers problem. Like we saw with the Lakers, that the Lakers were, even though their team isn't very good at basketball, they were at least finding ways to get their guys in good spots. And we were talking about how Anthony Davis had a few clear outs. It's like, okay, it might be on Kevon Looney or one of the best defenders in the world in Draymond Green, but at least they're getting the clear out. He's got options. Anthony Davis is a good passer. Like they had a few clear outs for Joel Embiid, and it's like, okay, awesome, what's going to happen? We're all tickling our fingers, like, is he going to do some massive shot? But a lot of the time they gave it to him at the high post as he's cutting up for the ball with 5 seconds to go, and it's like, cool, Are you going to dribble once or are you going to dribble twice? And then you're still not going to get a good shot off. And then if it wasn't going to Joel Embiid, then it was a James Harden like step back three, which, as we know, can work very well. And like that's just who he is. But at some point, a step back three from a dude who's 33 years old and is like struggling to stay in his prime isn't actually that good.
And Jaylen Brown or Tatum are standing in front of him.
And you've got one of the best defenders in front of him. And it's like we're talking about it, we're seeing it, and we know that Philly are much better than what this is. And I just can't stop pointing at Doc Rivers for not finding better shots for his players.
Yeah, I agree. There were like some moments in the first half where there's one Harden got a defensive rebound and Embiid was just like, banging it up the court. And Harden just went, like he just sprinted, and they got like a good transition bucket. I think that's the first time I've seen them both involved in a transition bucket in Philadelphia.
100%.
Like, and then it just stopped, and it just becomes this like stagnant half-court offense, which that is like Harden's preferred way of playing is like just slow everything down. In the sense of like don't play on the break. But yeah, I think you're right, because it's like Tyrese Maxey. You were saying he wasn't like asserting himself in the game. When he had the ball, he was really good. When he doesn't have the ball, he's got to be doing something because, he's a good shooter. He can make things happen. He's super athletic. But yeah, it can't just be like, Embiid, Harden, or Maxey have the ball and the other four players stand around. That can't be a tactic. The Harden and Embiid pick and rolls were like easily the only time anything was actually going for their offense today. Like it was.
What did you say today? The 2K pick and rolls.
Because I said that.
You said, Marco holding it, weird glasses.
2K16 bounce past. Hit a little circle.
But that was one of the more efficient plays in the NBA last year. Their pick and roll. So
it was, but the difficulty with them is that, like, you talk about Harden wanting to slow it down. Is like Houston Harden did that and averaged 36 points a game. Literally the most points in a game of anyone since Will Chamberlain, which is kind of crazy in a league that Michael Jordan played in. That's all true, and that was amazing when Harden was like absolute prime Harden. But Embiid also wants to slow it down, and Philly in the pre-Harden era only ran when Ben Simmons got the ball either off a defensive rebound or immediately getting the outlet pass. Like Ben Simmons was running, and like whoever happened to be up with him. It's like, Ben Simmons runs, and it's like Danny Green corner three, awesome. But Joel, wants to post up like a Jokic or like an old Dirk, like get the ball to nail and then kind of like let things happen around him. And that's really good. The offense can subsist on that. And, talking about how good he is when there's a clear out, when he goes to work in the post. But he's not a great or really even good passer out of double teams, passer out of the post. Like he hasn't kind of added that element to his game. So with the propensity for both of their stars to really want to slow things down, like if Harden kind of can't be that guy who averages 30 points anymore, and Embiid is that guy who's not able to kind of like involve people from the double team as well as you would like the risk of stagnating if they go slow is like really real, which only means that they like need more than ever to kind of tap into that, like, and go quickly and like whoever gets the ball, bring it up and just like try and tap into your fast break offense.
And the worst timeline of that is Tobias Harris saying, I wouldn't mind a little bit of a slow possession as well. What were you going to say, Lucas?
Well, I was going to say, where does that transition come from? Because I remember one play today distinctly that I went all caps in the chat for, where Tobias Harris decided to run the pick and roll, but like took it out to the wing and then like he was taking the ball down the middle of the court, took it out to the left wing and then went back to the middle and drove. And it's like, what is he? He's late 20s, and he's in the NBA.
You're not
so
that guy.
Like, you've run a fast break before, surely, and it didn't go like this, surely. So
and he put his head down on that play.
Yeah,
because I remember I was on delay, and you said that. I'm like, oh, what the fuck's he gonna do?
Yeah,
and he put his head down, looked away, and it's like you have numbers.
Yes,
and late 20s, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like you're saying, Harden and Embiid do like to slow it down. So is it up to the role players to like impose themselves on the game?
Well, Maxey is like the guy. Like Maxey is like like maybe not the fastest, but one of the quickest players in the NBA in terms of like jitterbug acceleration. Like if someone gives the ball to Maxey off a defensive rebound and says, if you can run. Like, that's something right there. Like, Maxey can rack up 2 or 3 assists on the fast break if the players on the court are prepared to run with him. And when they've got their depth pieces in, like, you can understand Embiid not wanting to sprint every single time because he's going to have to play 36 minutes. Same with Harden. When they've got their role players in, like, there's no real reason that, like, everyone shouldn't be running the court if you can kind of get Maxi going, because he seems to me like the logical piece, the logical player to ask to give you that run. You know, as we might talk about, you know, from the footy, tapping into that run off half back. Maxi is the rebounding half back. You know, you get the ball and he's just taking it forward.
Yeah.
And that, you know, he's the guy that can bring that element to their offense that their stars don't always want to or seem to be able to bring.
Yeah, and I feel like, with Maxi and, you know, everything you just laid out, and then with how much shooting they have, and then also with Harden and Embiid, didn't put the Celtics in a compromising situation once today.
Without their defensive linchpin, didn't put them in a compromising situation. Noah Vonleh was playing the 5.
Yeah. Oh, and my God, was he shitting himself. There was this play, Embiid had the ball on the left wing, and he just kept fumbling it. And like any other player, it's like, yeah, your role is to keep Embiid in front of you, but you know, it's also a bit dynamic. Like, if he's fumbling the ball, go and take the ball. Whereas Vonleh was just like, okay, I've just got to keep him in front of me. It didn't really work. Go on.
Well, and they were just getting so many foul calls as well. They had such an opportunity in the first quarter. I think Boston had 8 or 9 team fouls in the first quarter.
Very NBA opening night to have a flagrant review, 8 foul calls in the first quarter.
The first 4 minutes took 15 minutes.
Yeah,
bring me back to WNBA.
And we had a Van Gundy in our ear the whole time.
Yeah, it was beautiful. But yeah, this was like they had such an opportunity to grab this game. And they didn't do it. Like, what was the score going into the quarter? They were like a couple points up.
What, are we prepared?
It wasn't much.
Yeah.
Just to go back to like the double teams as well, when you had Danny Green and JJ Redick, and the double came across from Embiid, he sort of had someone to just fire the ball off to, for the most part. None of these guys are zipping around.
Yeah.
Outside of probably Korkmaz, who didn't play.
And you don't want Korkmaz to play that much because...
But like, you're Doc Rivers, you're the coach, and it's like, alright, this is what works when Embiid gets double teamed. We need a shooter to move so that he can pass to the shooter, who's then open, right? So as a coach, naturally you would go to your other players and say, hey guys, listen, this is the plan. When our big guy gets double teamed, the person whose defender has moved off them, go and shoot a fucking 3.
Yeah. The conversation doesn't end at, okay, so Embiid's going to get double teamed.
Yeah, exactly. But for Doc Rivers is coasting on a 2008 championship, which was a Tom Thibodeau-led defense and 3
Hall of Famers on the court.
4 Hall of Famers, really.
Whoa, are we ready for that conversation? Is Rondo a Hall of Famer?
At least the talent at the time.
And you say 2008, but don't forget the 3 times in NBA history where he's lost a 3-1 lead in the playoffs.
Correct. And the Clippers teams are constantly underperformed. And the Philly teams that's constantly underperformed.
Don't tell us. Tell some general managers and some president of basketball operations.
I can't believe Maury's inspiring.
Barking up the wrong tree.
I can't. Of all the people to like come in and make a stance, it's like Daryl Morey. Come in, I'm going to trade this. I don't care what the team does. I don't care how much money I'm spending. I'm trading everything. We're building this my way. I'm bringing in James and Embiid are going to play together, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, let's roll with Doc Rivers. There's no way he wanted to roll with Doc Rivers.
Well, let's stop talking about the losers because that's negative. Let's talk about what Boston did right. What they did right was keep the Jays for the last 4 years because fuck, they're good at basketball. And
I don't know. I think it's time to split them up.
And Jason Tatum, like he was there even when Philly did play excellent defense. Jason Tatum was just like, okay, he's been to the finals now. Like he obviously didn't play too well.
He
in
grew
the
his
finals.
beard as well.
Grew his beard.
He's arrived.
He's literally like. He had a great game. He hit some amazing tough shots. Obviously, both him and Jaylen Brown had 35 points today. Is that correct? Can we get the stat going?
34.
Nice Kylie, look that up.
Golly gosh.
Whilst Nice Kylie is looking that up, we're going to take a break. All right, Nice Kylie has come back to us and she has told us that it was in fact 35 points each. So just very good basketball players. Dante, what did you see when you were watching the Boston Celtics today?
I think the thing that kind of stands out to me is that Robert Williams obviously not there. We talked about how Horford, early foul trouble, Vonleh's coming in. The big rotation is kind of like a little bit sketchy until Rob Will comes back from his meniscus surgery, hopefully in January or December. But like it might not matter because the team is so good, and this was the number 1 D in the NBA last season for a reason because like everyone 1 through 9 is so good. You've got all of your point of attack defenders on the perimeter. You've got Defensive Player of the Year Smart, Derek White, awesome defender. Brogdon, who they've brought in, is an awesome defender. Grant Williams, the Jays on the wings, like everyone is really good. Everyone is drilled in Ime Udoka's system, which they're still gonna, for the most part, employ this season. I just think that like the skeleton of this team that we saw last season defensively is just going to remain in place even without their kind of game-wrecking inside presence.
Yeah, and Malcolm Brogdon is just looking like exactly what they were lacking in the postseason last year. He was just attacking the rim, that scoring presence off the bench. He was, throwing off some nice assists, as you said, a good defender. Like Peyton Pritchard didn't touch the court. Which, if he does, if any of their guards get injured, like you're pretty happy for him to play 20 minutes.
Yeah, he's a rotation piece.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was a rotation piece for a finals team last year, and he's riding the bench.
Yeah. That's just house money.
And any of their forwards can play the 4.
Yeah. And Grant Williams, you're very much tongue-in-cheek, Marco, but he was hitting some really nice shots. Yeah. It was Grant Williams' time. Blake Griffin, any comments?
Oh, God.
I got one for Derek White. Looks pretty good with regular season officiating.
You said it off air, Sean. There are so many other centers in the league that they could have signed. Like Dwight Howard, Hassan Whiteside. Not big on either of them.
William Gabriel was out there.
William Gabriel. Yeah, a famous footer. But yeah, I just don't know what Blake Griffin brings to this team. Like, if he's a body... He was actually... Noah Vonleh, there was a lot of consternation from me and others as soon as he touched the floor, but it looked like it didn't really matter. Blake Griffin being on the floor, it's a problem more than it's a solution.
Yeah, it's like you're sagging on the pick and roll and you're not a rim protector, and you don't shoot on offense, and no one wants you to play make next to all these guys.
And what happened to his 3-pointer that he created in Detroit? What happened?
He left it there.
That should be the one skill that he retained.
He had that one.
Dunking again.
He had that one quarter last season where he went off 18 points in a quarter, and he was going back to back with he's going back and forth with some current NBA star. I can't remember who it was, but they were feeding him, and it was in the Barclays Center. We know how loud it gets in the Barclays Center.
You can hear a pin drop.
But
everyone,
big pin.
Huge pin. They were feeding him though. They were literally giving him the ball, and he was taking step back threes and making them. So even if nothing else, since the 2017-18 season, which was his last All-NBA appearance, we'll still have that. He'll still have that.
Yeah, I don't know though. Robert Covington had 11 threes in the game last season.
Yeah.
And Robert Covington isn't a bonehead. When Blake Griffin's not on, he's making bad decisions defensively and offensively. Whereas, I think there are just so many other capable players they probably could have gotten who just, they're a bit cagier with what they're going to be doing on the basketball.
A big who provides you. A big who, it's knowing your role and being able to do it, because Blake Griffin is kind of at this point a tweener between the 4 and the 5, because he doesn't give you the rim protection you want from your 5, so you kind of want to put him out there with another big, but Sean, for all the reasons that you just mentioned, he's not doing the things that you would need him to do as a 4. He doesn't have that playmaking ability. And that offensive dynamism that he did in that first Detroit season, where he was fully actualized as this point forward, it was going to be his post prime metamorphosis, just becoming this playmaking 4, and he's just kind of not been able to tap into that since he really had that one season in Detroit. So he poses more problems for their big rotation than he solves, because if you got someone in a Dwight or a Whiteside, okay, they're super limited and they're not great at heaps of things, but you can at least say drop coverage, stand near the rim. There you go. You know that they're going to do an okay job of that. Blake, you can't really tell him to do anything and be confident that it's going to work well.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm glad you brought up Dwight, because there is that 8-minute patch that Dwight can give you in specific roles that I feel Blake was doing a bit at the Brooklyn Nets, where you don't really know. They're not doing anything that ends up on a stat sheet, but like every single time the ball goes out of bounds, there's a bit of a kerfuffle under the rim, and they put their hands up like, oh, me again. Like, why do you keep pointing the finger?
The fourth time this game, it couldn't be.
And it's just like they just cause so much chaos that the other team's just like, would you just fuck off?
Well, in the bubble, I think that was really like pertinent. Because Jokic was like trying to like post up Dwight in the but now it just echoes.
So loud.
Jesus, the water gags in this pod going off.
Jokic, who doesn't usually get like frustrated or angry, Jokic was like,
except for that time, notably that he absolutely body checked Markieff Morris so hard that he gave him whiplash.
Three things he deserved it. Secondly, he undercut him the play before when he wasn't looking, and thirdly,
I watched the same clip you did. I've seen it.
Thirdly, it wasn't whiplash. He just wasn't deserving of a roster spot halfway through that year.
Well, that's not what he says. And if there's one thing that I know through my 12 years of NBA fandom, it's that a Morris brother never lies.
But if you're Boston, why are you picking up Blake Griffin instead of Markieff Morris?
My mother told me that.
Markieff Morris would play a better role for Boston than Griffin.
He was on. I don't know if he's on. No, did
he plays for some. He plays for some.
No, he was on Brooklyn's roster. I don't know if he got waived because it was fully non-guaranteed before the season started. But also,
what are we talking
doesn't
about?
matter.
Yeah.
You know
what does matter?
Yeah, no, that's right. But
Restricted free agency.
Yeah, restricted free agency. Delayed league. So let's just wrap up with the final piece of news / non-news, and I'll go to you, Dante, because obviously it's your team. But Cam Johnson was one of the very few soon-to-be free agents who didn't sign an extension, being Cam Johnson. What are your thoughts on Cam Johnson not extending with the Phoenix Suns?
What is going on with this bloody society these days, where a bloke can't even get to restricted free agency without it being some sort of absolutely national issue?
You just can't be a restricted free agent.
No, it's true though.
Joey Seinfeld.
Bloody hell! I was born in the wrong generation. No, in all seriousness, I actually don't get the hand wringing over Cam Johnson not getting an extension and heading to restricted free agency after this season, because I feel like whilst he was deserving of being a finalist for Sixth Man of the Year last season and played an absolutely vital role for us off the bench, he still only has one season where he's played a big role and averaged over 10 points a game. So I don't really know what the rush is to give this guy like $110 million right now, especially when we've seen that that's kind of like the going rate for guys like Kevin Porter Jr., who just signed a $485, and DeAndre Hunter, who signed a $495. Like, if Cam Johnson comes back next season and cements himself as an upper echelon rotational wing on a great team, like, then done. Give him the bag. And if you have to pay him $10 or $20 million more, at least you know exactly what you're paying for over the life of that 4-year contract. Whereas now, like, he played a small role for 2 seasons. He's an older guy, so he potentially doesn't have that much more development to do. Giving him like this inflated contract that like younger role players are getting based on potential, I think there's no risk in doing that, especially when we're going to take him into free agency and just match whatever offer he gets anyway. And no one's giving Cam Johnson $150 million, so,
There's also the very real, like, can he start at the 4?
Yeah.
Because Jay Crowder's like massive. Jay Crowder's like a really, really big player. And Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson are both like not.
But Puff Johnson's brother is actually quite tall, and he can actually hang with he can.
But he's still he hasn't been developing his NBA body for as long as
Jay Crowder's in pounding Batokis his entire life.
Sure. That's the challenge for this season for Cam Johnson. Is okay, can you be a starting 4? Can you bang it up with the other 4s in the league?
I can just think of
sign the contract after that. After you prove whether or not you can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure he'd love to sign.
Yeah.
But like Aaron Gordon would push him around.
Markieff Morris would push him around.
Yeah.
I'm sure he would.
So I think it's right. Prove that you can kind of be like that combo tweener 3-4 and show that you can slide down as well as slide up. And if that's the case, and you prove that you're one of the best rotational wings or one of the best reserve or role playing wings, cool, you'll get the $25 to $27 million a year contract. It's just you can't give that money out willy-nilly if there's the chance that he's going to come back next season and average 9.2 points a game. You just especially when you've got the option to just see what happens and pay him a year later.
Such a well rehearsed take.
I've been thinking about this for a few days, ever since you sent him my way.
Well, I think that's as good a place as any to wrap up. Yeah, thanks for listening. Obviously, we probably have to say a little bit extra in this wrap-up as opposed to just some stupid joke. So, thanks for listening for the JVG NBA podcast. If it's your first time, thanks for listening. If it's not, thank you for continuing to listen. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your daily podcasts. You can also read everything all 5 of us write at thedeep2.com. We are now, for the first time, part of the Basketball Forever podcast network, so be sure to check out them on all their socials. While you're on that same social app, check out the Deep 2. And also thank you to the JVG boys, the JVG NBA Tribute Show in Lukas and Marco. Thanks to Les for just being a good friend, coming around with us. He also writes the Deep 2, as we said before. So yeah, check out all of us on socials. There'll be links in the bio, links everywhere, and we hope to hear you, see you, listen to you next episode. Why would we listen to them? Do you want to say something?
Well, yeah. I just want to say congratulations to you two for, making it into the big leagues, getting signed to Basketball Forever. Nobody knows more than us three how hard you guys work on this, and honestly, it's my favourite product. Being a part of the 4-man with Plus Marco is a joy, but listening to the Deep 2 NBA podcast every Friday morning at 8 a.m. and I'm being sincere it's one of life's greatest pleasures, so congratulations, boys.
Yeah, and just jumping off that, of course, congratulations. It's very nice to see your work get recognised, because this just spawned from being a hobby, and now you have a fucking website, and now you have a partnership with Basketball Forever, so just congratulations. And today, Dante, you might be familiar with this, but the first moment I got asked to write an article for thedeep2.com 21st of September 2019.
Wow.
And think about how much has happened since then. I fucking wrote at the FIBA Basketball Women's World Cup, and it wouldn't have been possible without you guys.
And we had that pandemic thing.
Sorry, God.
PC. Cancel culture.
Yeah,
the whole thing.
That's the real pandemic.
Yeah. And jumping off the other two, I just want to say congratulations. Very cool.
Very kind.
Well, sincere, heartfelt thanks to all of you, having you as our frequent collaborators, and dare I say, friends. It's a real joy, and we're very appreciative of all of your kind words, but even more appreciative to have you in our professional and personal lives the way that we do. So thank you, boys.
All right, we'll speak to you next week.
Goodbye.
If you look for PointsBet's stock exchange listing, you'll find a bucket of jargon and doublespeak as they're considered a, quote, wagering services operator, unquote. That's a corporate stretch for the colloquial friendly brogan or, hey, look, it's Chris Bosh kind of image they're sending off with their targeted advertising. I don't know about you, but take me back to the days when former pro sports players signed brand deals with hair loss clinics or Fujitsu aircons, not, quote, wagering service providers.
If you're scrolling through your Facebook feed and you come across the two of our faces morphed into one, would that make you listen to our podcast more? I mean, if it does, let us know and we'll start doing it. But when I see a few NBA players' faces morphed into one, it doesn't make me want to pull out my wallet and donate some money to my local wagering services provider.
The worst part is we're coming to accept it. Wagering service provider ads are so ingrained in our sports, and the way sports is delivered to us, it's almost impossible to avoid. 3/4 of Australian children aged between 8 and 16 years who watch sport think that betting on sport is normal and can name one or more sport betting companies. When I was in school, I was struggling to remember Pokemon names, and I'd be furious if I knew that brain power was being used to put towards wagering service providers and not them.
The wagering service providers know exactly who to target. It's not okay to let them ingrain themselves in young Australians' minds. It's not okay to target people in the middle of a pandemic, and it's not okay for gambling companies to wield so much influence in the world of sports. To help kick gambling out of sport, use your voice and sign the petition at www.endgamblingads.org.au/petition.